The Reserve Bank today announced a second set of steps. Remember, it announced the first on March 27th when it cut interest rates by 75 basis points and gave other reliefs called moratorium. Today it announced the second set, and here also there is a rate cut, a hidden one. It has reduced what is called the reverse repo rate by 25 basis to 3.75%. Now, I'll just take out the jargon. The reverse repo rate is the rate at which banks, when they have nothing to do with the money, give it to RBI, and RBI gives them just 3.75%. Now, until very recently, the banks were getting almost 4.4% for money that they were unwilling to lend to anyone, or they've yet to find a borrower. Now, from 4.4, just last week, by changing the rules of auction, they had brought it down to 4%. Now they've brought it down further to 3.75. Now look at the psyche of a banker. When he is taking money, he gets a small amount of money as current account, for which he pays no interest, zero. When he takes money on savings account, they're paying almost 3% average. Some banks like Kotak pay even 5%. And then they get money in term deposits, for which, fixed deposits, like they get between 5 and 6%. So total cost of money for a banker on an average is about 4% if you take an average, even for a bank with a lot of current and savings account. If you don't lend it but keep it just lazily with RBI, you get only 3.75. That's a loss for a banker. That is why the Reserve Bank bringing down the reverse repo rate is a very big propeller for the economy. It forces the banks to lend because sitting on idle money is expensive. Of course, banks will bring down their deposit rates and therefore try to reduce cost. They don't necessarily have to lend, but it is a very good effort on the part of the Reserve Bank to force banks to lend. Therefore, one expects that for all of us, the lending rates are going to come down, or at least you will find willing bankers. For corporates, this is a very good sign. So this is a plus for the economy, for corporate sector, for borrowers, for even you and me, if we care to take, say, a car loan or a home loan. The next set of steps is reliefs for NBFCs. The Reserve Bank has said that it will conduct what is called long-term repo, Ltro it's called. It will give banks money at 4.4%, that is the repo rate. But banks who take that money will have to lend it to NBFCs, non-bank finance companies and microfinance companies and housing finance companies. Why is that important? Because these guys have a lot of money coming to them in the form of bonds and debentures, which have to be serviced, but their borrowers, the borrowers of NBFCs and HFCs, got a moratorium in the March 27th announcement. That is, for 3 months they don't have to pay interest, and then of course they'll be charged higher interest later on. But that created a mismatch for the NBFCs. That is, they have to service the source of money, but they were not getting interest on the money that they have lent out. So they were all complaining, this is not fair. RBI has provided this targeted Ltro money which will go to them to meet the fund mismatch. That solves a problem for one set of companies, and that's not small, NBFCs account for about 30 lakh crore, HFCs for another 7 lakh crore. So 37 lakh crore of funders to the economy were complaining. Now that complaint is somewhat taken off. The third relief is in classification of what is a bad loan. Now, banks and NBFCs were telling RBI, you have given a 3-month moratorium for this lockdown period. March, April, May, companies which don't have money because there's no revenue, no activity, they don't have to pay interest. But a lot of people with overdue interest on on their loans in February and March usually pay up by the 90th day because they don't want to become NPA. So March 15 to March 31st, we would have got a lot of loans which should have been paid actually in February and March, by Jan end or Feb end itself. That would have come. Now you're making us classify that as NPA. So now the Reserve Bank has said, okay, overdue loans also will be eligible for overdue loans as of March 1st will also be eligible for moratorium, but you have to make a provisioning of 10% on those overdue loans. This is a good measure because it saves banks, it saves borrowers from being tagged as NPA. Once you're tagged as NPA, you know, nobody services you, nobody gives you a second lease of life. So in a way, this is an excellent move that saves a lot of borrowers. It removes the immediate threat of NPA, but for NBFCs and banks, it comes at a cost. They have to keep additional provisioning, and that's a very prudent measure. You will therefore look at those who deserve this moratorium and accordingly, you know, give them that help. It's a prudent measure. Ultimately, you don't want banks to give, moratorium for all and sundry, and you know, in the end, that will come as bad loans at a later date. So the reliefs are excellent. There are some people who will crib and say that the Reserve Bank could have done more, because more was asked of it. It was told that, you know, you should directly monetize the central bank, the central government's deficit. That is, central government wants money because to fight COVID, you have to, you know, encourage SMEs. And if you go to the market is charging, you know, very high interest rates. So RBI should directly take bond from the government and give them money. What do you call monetization of the deficit? RBI has not done that. All it has done is it has given a higher borrowing limit for states. Okay, it has not crossed the true dharma of a central bank. It is also not giving directly loans to the NBFCs. It is giving it only through NABARD or through NHB or through the banks. And thirdly, they were told that, you know, if banks have corporate bonds, they can give it as collateral and RBI should lend repo money. RBI has not done that either. It will give repo only against government securities. It has not crossed the dharma of a central bank. But never mind, maybe it is just saving this ammunition for a later day, and it is being wisely prudent. You don't want a reckless central bank. For me, this is a thumbs up for the central bank and for the economy. This is a fairly important lease of life. It's fueling, done its best to fuel credit. So for me, I think this makes the Reserve Bank come out looking very good. Good times, I think, for the economy, but slowly. Don't be in a hurry.